We witnessed that the United States insisted on bad faith and violation of the ceasefire. All of this is evidence that the United States apparently does not show seriousness in the diplomatic process. We are still in a state of war. It is true that a ceasefire has been announced. But unfortunately, it has been met from the very beginning with repeated violations by the United States. And the announcement that Iran's ports and vessels would be targeted by the United States has complicated the situation.
The Iranian-flagged container ship Tuska, which was boarded and seized by U.S. forces on Sunday, is likely to have what Washington deems dual-use items that could be used by Tehran's military. That's according to maritime security sources on Monday. The small container ship is part of the Islamic Republic of Iran Shipping Lines Group, which has been hit with U.S. sanctions. The U.S. Central Command said Tuska's crew failed to comply with repeated warnings over a 6-hour period, and that the vessel was in violation of a U.S. blockade. The security sources, who declined to be identified, said their initial assessments were the vessel was likely to be carrying dual-use items after a voyage from Asia. U.S. Central Command has listed metals, pipes, and electronic components among other goods that could have a military as well as an industrial use and could be captured. One of the sources said Tuska had previously transported items deemed as dual use. They did not go into detail. Iran's foreign ministry did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Iran's military said the ship had been traveling from China and accused the U.S. of armed piracy, according to state media on Monday. U.S. President Donald Trump said in a post on Truth Social on Sunday that the Tuska was under U.S. sanctions due to its prior history of illegal activity. Iran is considering attending peace talks with the United States in Pakistan, a senior Iranian official told Reuters on Monday, following moves by Islamabad to end the U.S. blockade of Iran's ports. However, the official stressed that no decision had been made, and Iran's foreign minister said that continued violations of the ceasefire by the U.S. are a major obstacle to continuing the diplomatic process.
As a veteran, I know the harm that wars do to civilian populations, but also to our soldiers. I'm talking about the loss of life. I'm talking about injuries and lives changed forever. I'm talking about PTSD and moral injury, and that's why I'm here today. We heard the same promises and the same excuses and reasoning for the Iraq war that we're hearing today. And they're shifting constantly to justify our presence in the Middle East. And we're not fooled. We as veterans know better.
Congress are the ones who approve it. Where are they? They have that power to stop Trump's recklessness. They have that power, and I don't understand what in the world are they doing. For us civilians to have to come out here, all the way from California, to ask them to step up against Donald Trump, for them to do their job, it is absurd to me that they're not doing anything.
U.S. stocks closed slightly lower on Monday, with the Dow flat and the S&P 500 and NASDAQ each dipping about 0.25%. All three indexes are coming off a third straight week of gains, but renewed U.S.-Iran tensions put the durability of a 2-week ceasefire in question. Adam Coons is Chief Investment Officer at Winthrop Capital Management.
Yeah, so today we got markets, in that digestion period of what's going on in the Middle East. Last week we ended the week with a strong rally because there was just stronger talks about a deal being made between the U.S. and Iran, and just kind of over the weekend saw some deterioration of kind of evidence on what that would look like and if it was really going to even happen. So you're seeing stocks sell off a little bit today, and just overall kind of the pessimism is creeping back into markets today, where it seemed to evaporate last week.
U.S. crude jumped more than 6.5% to settle at nearly $90 a barrel. Among the session's stock moves, communication services was the worst performing sector. Shares of Apple moved lower in extended trading after the iPhone maker named company insider John Ternus as its next CEO. Tim Cook, who has led Apple since 2011, will become the company's executive chairman. Shares of Meta shed 2.5% to snap a 9-session winning streak, its longest since October. And shares of Netflix also fell 2.5%. The stock has fallen about 12% since the streaming service last week announced its quarterly results and the departure of co-founder Reed Hastings.
Amazon said Monday that it will invest up to $25 billion in Anthropic. That's as the AI startup committed to spending more than $100 billion over the next 10 years on Amazon's cloud technologies. The e-commerce titan will be investing $5 billion now, and an additional $20 billion in the future, subject to certain commercial milestones. This is in addition to the $8 billion Amazon previously invested in the company. The deal deepens the two firms' relationship as Anthropic rushes to secure capacity to bolster its models. In a statement, the cloud creator said it expected to bring in roughly 1 gigawatt of new computing capacity by year-end using Amazon's Trainium chips. It ultimately expects to secure up to 5 gigawatts of such capacity. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy said in a statement that Anthropic's use of Trainium chips, quote, reflects the progress we've made together on custom silicon. Amazon shares rose over 2% in extended trading.
Scientists at the University of Witwatersrand have designed South Africa's first app to warn residents about pollution levels. It's an innovation that could have been useful to student Philisande Shange in Johannesburg.
I couldn't really control my breathing. I couldn't breathe properly.
Shange, who has asthma, says he developed a cough in February and March amid pollution spikes in Africa's wealthiest city. He thought his asthma pump could help.
It progressed, it became worse.
Shange says a medical practitioner linked his condition to poor air quality in Johannesburg. The city lies near the country's coal mines, and the rotten egg smell of sulphur has often been present in the air. Coal employs tens of thousands of people and provides 3/4 of South Africa's electricity. Environment Minister Willie Orkamp attributed the rotten egg smell to hydrogen sulfide emissions from mining and industrial operations to Johannesburg's east. That's where South Africa's two biggest polluters, Sasol and Eskom, have their largest facilities. They were both granted extensions to emissions exemptions in 2025. Eskom did not respond to a request for comment. A Sasol spokesperson said that no operational incidents or abnormal process conditions have been identified that would indicate an uncontrolled or atypical release of sulphur emissions. But Dominique Adams, project coordinator of the South African Consortium of Air Quality Monitoring app, said air pollution around Johannesburg was worsening.
So the situation is pretty bad. I mean, and it continues to getting worse because also in the surrounding areas around Johannesburg, there's a lot of mining sites and construction sites too, which add to the problems as well.
The app launching later this year uses data from hundreds of air monitoring systems. It sends out notifications and advises residents on protective measures like wearing a mask during pollution surges.
Petrohurin was among hundreds of thousands sent to clean up the Chernobyl site in the wake of the world's worst nuclear disaster. 40 years on, and he says his health has never been the same. An explosion at the Ukrainian nuclear plant on April the 26th, 1986, sent clouds of radioactive material across much of Europe. Hurin worked in 12-hour shifts using an excavator to load concrete onto trucks to be taken to the reactor. After 4 days, he says he was suffering severe symptoms, including headaches, chest pain, bleeding and a metallic taste in his throat.
I was brought to the hospital and the doctors did a blood test first. They pricked all my fingers and a pale liquid came out, but no blood. It's true. And then the doctors gave their verdict. I had to be taken out of the Chernobyl area immediately.
31 plant workers and firemen died in the immediate aftermath, mostly from acute radiation sickness. Thousands more have since suffered with radiation-related illnesses such as cancer. Hurin said of the 40 sent from his company to excavate, only 5 remain alive, and that Chernobyl first responders scattered across different regions are quietly dying.
I will tell you, not a single Chernobyl person is in good health. It's called death by 1,000 cuts.
Soviet authorities strove to conceal the extent of the Chernobyl disaster, and Hurin said Soviet doctors refused to diagnose him with radiation sickness. Ukraine's current government has highlighted the Soviet authorities' bungled handling of the accident and attempts to cover up the disaster. As for 75-year-old Hurin, he has lived a long life by the standards of his countrymen, though he says he has been diagnosed with anemia, often linked to radiation sickness, angina, pancreatitis, and a series of other conditions. Another catastrophe, however, has come to dominate his life. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, his grandson Andriy, who he raised, went to fight. He was killed 3 years ago, aged 26. Hurin says Russia has never treated other people's lives with humanity, adding, "We think of Andriy all the time."